We'll welcome in Mike Giardi of the Boston Sports Journal. Mike, thanks for joining us here on the NFL Draft Show. I know there's a lot going on tonight. What were your initial thoughts on the Patriots selecting Will Campbell 4th overall?
I mean, I think it was predictable, right? I think we've been talking about this as an inevitability for at least the last month and maybe the last two. You're hoping that someone might come up. There might be someone that intrigues someone enough to make a phone call and maybe move the Patriots off their spot and back a little bit in the first round. But as Mike Vrabel said, that they didn't really get those calls. No one, I know there were some exploratory calls before, but nobody really stepped up and made anything happen here. So they take the guy that fills a need for him, and hopefully that need is at left tackle and not left guard. That's my concern about it, but that's where they are right now.
So, Mike, I know you're somebody who's worried about that. You were looking at maybe Armand Membu to make the move over. What was your reaction to Mike Vrabel pretty definitively saying, no, he's going to compete for our starting left tackle job?
I thought that was a really good question by the reporter. I think that was Mike Giardi. Yeah, no. So, no, I mean, look, that's obvious. They're going to bring him in, and that's what they're going to do. That's where he played in college. That's what he knows. You bring him in here, you'll see if it works. And hopefully it does, and then that's a big hit. And if it doesn't and you have to move him inside, I think that's what everybody says. Oh, well, just move him inside, and he'll be solid there. I don't know. He's never played guard before. I think he's got the skill to do it, but we'll have to see about that. But, I mean, that's the obvious thing. You're not going to come in and be right away being like, nah, he's a guard. They feel comfortable with it, and we'll see what it looks like in training camp.
We saw 3 tackles go off the board here in the first round.
3 tackles. We got, with the Seahawks taking Gray Zabel, 2 guards, too, in the top 20.
So, can we be critical here, Mike? What's there to be worried about? I mean, when I think of 4th overall picks, I think of Trent Williams. I think of Lane Johnson. Can Will Campbell be one of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't the draft for that, right? I think in many other years, if you're picking 4th, just even last year, you're picking 4th last year, and you didn't have to draft a quarterback, you'd take Joe Alt, and you'd be pretty well set up, right, for the future because he has the measurables. Like, you're talking about a player in Will Campbell, for as good as he was in college, that he would be the outlier of all outliers. Whether it's the 33-inch arms or less than that, depending on what measurement you believe, the 78-inch wingspan, the 9.5-inch hand size. Like, these are all things that if you go back and mock draftable for the last 25 years, no one with that combination has made a Pro Bowl, let alone be an All-Pro. So, again, he's a really good football player. I think he's going to be a good player in the league, but whether he's a good player at tackle or guard remains to be seen. History tells us he's not going to be a good left tackle at that size and with all that stuff. Like, that's just what history says. Can he be the guy that changes history? We'll see. If he does, that's fantastic. But right now, there's a lot that says he's probably going to be an average tackle or he's probably going to be a guard. Again, we don't have the information yet. We'll have to see how it plays out on the football field.
So if we factor it, we'll call it Will Campbell on the left side.
Yes.
Garrett Bradbury steps in for David Andrews, who missed most of last season, and was backups at center. They get Morgan Moses at right tackle. That's going to allow Mike Onwenu, for like the first time in his 6-year career, to just sit and work at one position at right guard. How much better right now, with left tackle still kind of being a question, or left guard still being a question if Campbell plays tackle, how much better is their offensive line right now than it was last season?
That's a great question. On paper,
or if it is better, you could say it's worse too.
Well, no, I'm going to say on paper it is, but I think there's a couple things we have to look at. Bradbury was not good last year. I mean, there were some incredible pressure rate numbers against him last year. You're talking about a former first-round pick who the Vikings walked away at the age of 29. And then Morgan Moses is a really good football player, and he's still a good football player right now. The last 2 years, though, the injuries have creeped up. And if you talk to people around the Jets last year, he played through some of that stuff, not necessarily to his or their benefit. But what are you going to do? Tell the guy he can't play? Like, he was that kind of leader. He played. So at 34, I don't know. Have we already hit the point where you're not going to get 17 games from Morgan Moses, and that means that some of the pieces behind him, a guy like Caden Wallace, obviously, last year we didn't really see very much of because of the injury that he suffered. Like, the development of some of these younger players is going to be critical.
How much a lot of people have kind of penciled in Garrett Bradbury as that starting center, but they do have Ben Brown back, who started most of last year. Cole Strange started moving over there. Could that be maybe more of a competition, do you think, than people are expecting?
I think so. I think just strictly based on the contract, right? Follow the money. They gave Garrett Bradbury $3.8 million. That's not money that you wouldn't say at the end of August, this guy ain't cutting it. We'll cut him. Like, you can eat that. And certainly they have a ton of cap space, so that's not even a concern either. But, like, that contract told you that, like, okay, we like him. We think he can work in our system, but we're not full-on committed to this guy. If someone can beat him out in camp, go for it.
All right, we're talking about Mike Giardi of the Boston Sports Journal. Mike, was this a Mike Vrabel pick? Elliott Wolf, do you think it was collaborative? And, Alex mentioned this earlier, but, their 2 first-round picks are quarterback and left tackle, which, are the most expensive positions in all of football. Was that organizationally, or was this Mike Vrabel's pick?
I think it's Mike Vrabel's pick. I think, and look, it's interesting when we talk about this. Like, and Elliott said this, and I think Mike has said this as well, where I'm not going to pick a player if I'm Elliott Wolf that my head coach doesn't want on the roster. He's got to be able to work with him. What's his vision for him? Does that vision fit with what we think the player can be from the front office perspective? But at the end of the day, I think it's Mike's show, and I think if Mike wanted Will Campbell, Mike was going to get Will Campbell, and that's what happened.
And just to follow up on that real quick, a defensive-minded coach went very defensive in free agency. Some people just seem to think that's where they should have went here. This was their biggest need, right?
Yeah, look, they could use another pass rusher too. I don't think they have what you would consider a high-end pass rusher unless you're hoping Harold Landry steps back into the time machine from a few years ago before he tore the ACL. That would have been a place where I would have looked at. I'm certainly a fan of Jalen Walker, who ended up not going until 15 overall. Atlanta, I like Michael Williams, who went 11. But, yeah, left tackle, offensive line. You've got to protect this quarterback. We saw him get hit far too often last year. Some of that was of his own volition, if you will. But, they needed to get better there. That thing that they threw in front of him and Jacoby Brissett was not good. Was not good at all.
So Mike Vrabel left the door open there that they'd look to trade up, and it has to be for the right player. I asked this, and I'll just throw in the context here. Emeka Egbuka was just picked 19th by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a guy that some people had tied to the Patriots. Is there a certain player, a certain position, if they move up, that you think they'll be targeting?
I could see, because of the plethora of edge rushers, and now it seems like a couple of them are getting pushed back, that maybe that would be a place where they'd be interested in talking about moving up for. Certainly that's an area where the draft is deep, so maybe they just say we can sit at 38 and still get the player that we want or something close to it. And I would think offensive line's still on the table. I really do. You mentioned it. Will Campbell, left side. Like, if there's another player there, I don't think it's crazy to talk about doubling down on the position that has been, for the last, 2-3 years has been very unstable. And, it's been one of the worst offensive lines in football with a bunch of different guys playing on it.
All right, Mike, appreciate your time tonight. I know there's a lot going on. Who knows? They might jump back in here in the first round. So certainly keep your phone nearby. I appreciate you, Mike Giardi, Boston Sports Journal, joining us. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys.